just focus on 2 or 3 or something like that, right? Anybody wants to say anything about these prophecies? Kali?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, so he said that these prophecies are clear and they're numerous. I mean, there were a few words he said about them, right? They are clear, they are very precise, and they are um, numerous. Um, and I'm not sure if there was. I'm not sure. He used a few more criteria there. And I mean,
Right.
what I'll have to probably do is, I mean, I'll have to go into at least one or two of them. I can go into probably all of them, but I think that will take a lot of time. Um, the which was the first one that he mentioned? It wasn't the Arabs one, right? Before that,
Yeah,
he
Yeah,
mentioned.
for the Arab, yeah.
Burj
So that
Khalifa. Burj Khalifa, right?
No, he mentioned one before that, right? Uh,
Okay, let me just
yeah,
go
let's
back.
just go through because I wanted to see that.
5 criterion. These 5 criteria, Mark chapter number 13, you'll find that it says in one generation the heavens and the earth will be destroyed. Nostradamus made a prediction that in 177 years there'll be famine and war and so on. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he made the following predictions. For
Something happened. His file is still there.
hello.
Yeah.
The video stopped. Did you stop it?
Or all right, the video has stopped. All right. You weren't able to hear it?
No, no.
No, it just
It just stopped right now. I mean, just a few
it might
seconds
have
ago.
been me, because I was pressing the screen and it just turned off. Then maybe I
Yeah,
should.
Okay,
maybe.
okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, because I'm
All
one
right.
of the admins. Yeah, I,
Yeah,
I
Okay.
think I was trying to make the screen bigger, but gone. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
I think
So yeah.
that was the first one, right?
No, he didn't
Maybe.
mention any from the prophet, right? He just mentioned a few from Nostradamus or something like that. Just keep
Okay,
playing it.
let here.
that comes from an integrous source and unambiguous in human history. These 5 criterion, that I've just mentioned, if you apply them to any other historical figure, it will collapse. For example, if you look at the Bible, Mark chapter number 13, you'll find that it says in one generation the heavens and the earth will be destroyed.
Forward it a bit.
Nostradamus made.
Yeah. Kali, sorry, did you
Forward.
say
Forward it. Yeah. I said
forward?
because yeah, slightly.
He made the following predictions for that they will compete to see who creates the highest buildings. Now
I guess
we're seeing that the highest building.
Okay.
Right, that's the first one, right?
I guess so.
These
So
buildings,
first
right?
of all, the problem is, as far as I have read the Quran. I know I might be wrong because I obviously I'm a scholar or something. I have read the Quran 2 or 3 times, so I might have missed it. But I want to know if there is any verse in the Quran which actually mentions prophecies as a criteria or as a reason for which the prophet should be accepted as a prophet. I mean,
I
particularly,
wholeheartedly agree with you, and I think you are right. I think, and I might be wrong as well. There is no such criteria.
yeah. So
I
I mean,
mean, we
good.
are. I'm raising my hand, saying that okay, I'm ignorant about that, but
Yeah,
that's as far as my information is.
me too. But I mean,
Right.
I might be wrong there, but I'd like to know if I'm wrong.
Yes,
As
exactly.
far as
My
I know,
position as well.
there are many arguments that Quran provides for God and for in order to accept Muhammad as a prophet.
Hmm.
I don't think there's any verse which mentions that he tells you, oh, he tells you about future, or he gives you some prophecies which have been proven correct, and therefore you should accept him as a prophet. And which is quite, I think it's quite telling that a lot of these. In fact, there are verses in the Quran which mentions that I don't even know about my own future. So I mean, there are certain verses which indicate that the prophet didn't know the future, and you, on the other hand, are claiming that in fact his prophecies are the criteria upon which we can judge his prophethood. So this is a very big red flag that these prophecies, particularly the ones in Hadith, were actually added later on. So interestingly enough, So the first prophecy, about the Arabs one, I'll come back to that. But generally, so I just want to comment on this entire argument as a whole right now. The argument from prophecy, majority, in fact, 90 or 95% of these prophecies are based on hadiths. Now, the problem is many of these prophecies had already been fulfilled before they were documented.
Exactly.
That is,
And I was gonna come to this point, but you
yeah,
already, yeah,
yeah,
yes,
because
exactly.
the Persian and Roman defeat, or the fall of their empires,
That happened pretty early, actually, in the conquest,
exactly,
Islamic
it,
conquest.
it it
It was
happened
probably
during the
636
Khilafah.
that,
Yeah,
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 it
it
was
happened during the Khilafah.
636 when Byzantine was conquered, and probably 638 or 640 when Persia was conquered. So within,
Exactly,
like, within 8 or 10 years after, purported death of the prophet,
right,
these two were conquered already. So yeah,
right.
sorry,
So,
go ahead, Cal.
so, such prophecies uh, are not, at least, cannot be an evidence for the humans or for people today. Why would we accept that a prophecy which was written 200 years after the event had happened, you are going to claim that, oh, you see, the prophet actually had already prophesied it? Well, why should I accept that it was actually prophesied by him, or it was actually written later on? So, number one, this is a big problem. Number two, um, again, an indicator of the problems with the prophecies, particularly in Hadith. Um, you see that, the prophecies and a lot of future events which were foretold by the prophet, um, in quite a lot of detail. You see, the detailed ones, particularly mentioning people, how they'll die, what will happen to a particular tribe or a particular person or a particular nation. So all the prophecies which are quite detailed enough, which are quite detailed, happens to be
Didn't come true.
only, or happens to be only related to the period up till the time they were documented. And all the prophecies, or major, I mean, it's quite clearly all of the prophecies which relate to the period after the documentation of the hadith are quite vague in nature. They aren't very specific in terms of, which area does this pertain to, which nation, what actually would happen. So these are quite vague, which again gives you an indication that these events, or these prophecies which Muslim claim to be some true prophecies or some miraculous prophecies, but actually uh, you know were actually written down or documented later on, after the events had already happened. So, because if that had not been the case, we would see similar prophecies of similar nature for periods throughout human history. So for the next, I mean, let's say till for the rest of the 1400 years up till now, we would see very specific prophecies, but this did not happen. So this is a very, I would say, for a person who's looking into this subject with a very open mind, this raises a lot of questions. Any comments to you that which you read, put up?
Right. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I just wanted to highlight a few prophecies that didn't come true. And you're right that they were
Yeah,
vague. And
yeah,
in particular, I remember a few, and I don't remember the exact wording, but there is one prophecy about one, what is the judgment day? When is the judgment day coming, right?
yeah, yeah.
And there is this young kid, and then the prophet looks at him and says, this won't see the end of life, or something like that. I might be paraphrasing or something like that, but it's something similar to that. He won't get to see the end of life, and the judgment day will come before his death, or something like that. So
Right, right.
correct
Yeah,
me, yeah. But there are few prophecies regarding Judgment Day, and they seem to have well past their time. Basically, I mean, when is the Judgment Day coming? In 100 years time or something like that, right? So they're not talking about these prophecies that haven't come true. And where are these prophecies coming from, which have you know been considered to be true, but they are really vague, right? I mean, the ones that he has quoted, let's address one by one, right? Maybe at least
Yeah,
address one or two of these, right?
absolutely,
Highest
absolutely.
building one, highest building
The
one,
highest building one. The highest building one.
right?
So
I mean,
you see, and I'll actually raise another pattern that you'll note, um, because whenever I listen to such arguments, I do look into it. I do check out the prophecies or the hadiths which mention this. Um, this particular, let's say, hadith, which you in fact mentioned, which mentions that this child is not going to die. So it's something. It goes something like this: that what it means is that this when this child dies, that will be the end. That will be the end of this world. Something like that. Now, there are actually different variants of that particular hadith, and Muslims actually say that in some other variant, actually the Prophet is only saying that only that no human who is alive today will be alive after 100 years. So what he means is that actually he's only talking about the people who are alive at the time, or they play also the card like wherever he's mentioned that the Qiyamah will be in the next 100 years, something like that. He's like, well, there are different kinds of Qiyamah, like there are different kinds of what do you call Qiyamah in English? The
the last day, the Judgment Day, maybe.
yeah, I mean, but that's
Apocalypse is the word,
apocalypse. Yeah,
right?
that's it's a big word, but I would say so. They say that the apocalypse that the Prophet was talking about in these particular hadith, which mention a very short period of time, actually meant a smaller apocalypse. Like so they use the word uh, Qiyamat is for that, which means smaller Qiyamah. So something big event, as a big event would happen, or in the next 100 years. So now, when it's so vague, and they can point towards anything. So the problem is that there are different variants of a particular hadith. Even a single hadith, there are different variants or different ways that a single hadith has been quoted. This particular hadith also has different variants. Which one? The one which mentions about the building of, building tall towers, something like that. Even, and I think I learned about this from the video which Hassan Ridwan actually made. And in fact, Hassan Ridwan actually has a blog on this. Um, and he actually detailed out that there are different hadiths on this. None of the hadith actually mention that it will be the Arabs. And I've often heard Muslims mention this, that Prophet said the Arabs. The hadith never mentions the Arab. It just says the Bedouin, barefooted Bedouins
So,
will,
just wanted to clarify, Khali. So,
yeah,
since I haven't read this hadith, maybe I just want a clarification. So, you're saying that the hadith says that the barefooted Bedouins are gonna build tallest buildings.
not the
Is that
tallest.
what
Yeah, no, not the
the tall
tallest.
build, tall
They're
towers?
going to compete. They're going to compete in building tall buildings, actually. So that's
Okay,
what they're
okay,
going to
okay.
do.
So, yeah,
So
so this.
yeah, in fact, let me see, because I did collect them all. I have actually collected the various
Yeah,
hadiths on
because
this.
then that changes the whole game. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
even if for the sake of argument, right? Even if for the sake of argument you take it that the Muslims are gonna build tallest buildings, I mean, what are the chances that you predict something and something comes out to be true in 2000 years, 5000 years? One day
Yes,
they and especially when it's
exactly.
written, it's called what is it called? Madin, probably you're gonna.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, self-fulfilling
Okay.
prophecy, right? Self-fulfilling prophecy, because now since you read that hadith, you're gonna do everything in your power to make it come
Exactly.
true. right?
And exactly, and you see,
And that's why that's one of the very fundamental reasons why you have that what is called that Arab Tower in Mecca. I forgot its name.
yes,
Right, the
because the
right
hadith
the
mentions that.
building, yeah, the
Yeah,
right
the
the
hadith, there's a hadith
building right in,
mentions.
yeah,
Let me quickly say something on this then, since I've been quiet for a
yeah,
while.
yeah, yeah, Mahadin,
So
yes, sure.
regarding this, I think for a good criterion for a prophecy would be from some of the things that you mentioned already. Let me just organize it and gather it together. A clear, unambiguous passage in the Quran or the Hadiths, right, stating something to that effect that prophesizes something in the future, right? That would be a clear, unequivocal, unambiguously direct version of a prophecy that cannot be
Right.
interpreted as something else. If it has multiple usages, multiple linguistic ways of interpretation, it means different things, then it already kind of gets a bit muddy. I think the second thing would be something like, it can't be something mundane, can't be something achievable through guessing, can't be achievable through mere um, um, predictable thinking, or even informative thinking with guides and disciplines and think tanks. Maybe you're not going to have think tanks back then, but I'm laying down a generic criteria for prophecies. So today, you can pretty much prophesize almost, quote unquote, climate change, but that's not the same thing, So it's not that type of prophecy, and therefore it's predictable through our machines, and therefore this is not the type of prophecy that we really mean is supernatural. So it has to be something more than mundane, and so on. And as you mentioned, it has to be something beyond us to attempt to create or fulfill. So it can't be a self-fulfilling prophecy. If human beings can go and perform this task, then that could be attributed to human beings. And since we can never distinguish between whether this was achieved via supernatural intervention or just by human effort, a plausible explanation for any prophecy that can be accomplished by a human being is that it was because it was accomplished by human effort. That's one plausible explanation, and that is more probable than the supernatural explanation. And between a supernatural explanation and a more probabilistic explanation, Occam's razor, the more probabilistic explanation should explain the matter entirely. So, and then the actual prophesized event itself should be, in terms of the linguistics or whatever is prophesizing, it should also be unambiguous. It can't be applicable to a whole host of things. And this is the problem with falsifiability. If the event or thing or the phenomena, object, whatever it is vaguely described, then it might be applicable to a whole host of things. So if it says somewhere, barefooted Arabs, what does that mean? It could mean literally barefooted Arabs. It could mean genealogically barefooted Arabs. It could mean poetically, metaphorically. You can have various different meanings. And similarly, the word tall buildings. Well, what is tall? Tall can mean anything, right? It's such a broad criteria. Yeah, 15 foot could be tall. That's 20 foot could be tall. 150 foot could be tall. What is tall? You could try and specify and say that's taller than the Arabs of the time, but the buildings of the time, and then it just doesn't seem that much more interesting anymore, because which I'll go into explain in a minute why. And similarly, if somewhere it says a rock will be found somewhere on the planet, these are so vague. It's got no time frame. It has no somewhere on the planet is so generic, so it could be anywhere in the planet. A rock will be found. Well, what do you mean a rock? Obviously, rocks are so mundane. So all of these things have the same problems that I've already just talked about, the mundaneness and so on. But the vagueness of the actual thing that's been described makes it unfalsifiable. Meaning, if time goes on and there's multiple chances, hit and miss approaches where people will just look at and examine the Quran, and geographically there are millions of Muslims around the world looking looking to score a goal by fitting in this elastic linguistic word like rock, stone, whatever it is. It's such a broad term, and he can fit it with any phenomena. Well, with enough time, it could just through a hit like lottery, like the law of large numbers, like playing gambling, it will just by probability alone, sheer probability alone, might just come true, because it's so vague that you'll find something to hit it. So a good prophecy would be falsifiable, meaning that it will be time restricted, time sensitive. So it'll be saying something like, in 112 years, in the month of February, in January, this will happen. Then now it's very specific. Now it's not, you can't just wait 2,000 years. Now it's a very specific time. Secondly, it would specify in such a way that it can't be produced by human beings. So it might be saying that a meteor would land in this particular place, right? That would be so specific. That would be very, very. It can't be accomplished by man. It's very specific. It's not. It's very falsifiable, meaning it's very easy to falsify, right? The unfalsifiable one is so broad and elastic in language, and there's no time period, no time end date, no, nothing, that it has an endless ability to come true eventually. And I would make the argument then that is, since it's open to that, we can't distinguish it from luck, hit and miss, probably, luck. The probability of it coming true through luck is inscrutable, meaning that we can't give it a particular number, that it's very likely to come through naturalistic trial and error. But since it's an open possibility because it's so open-ended, that is a plausible explanation, and that should be favored over a supernatural explanation. So those are the type of arguments I would deploy. And that's all applicable to everything that you guys have said already.
Right, great point, Martin. Yes, I agree. I think we can, in a nutshell, we can say a few things, right? Clarity is very important, right? A precise timeline is very important, right? And then it should be something that should be beyond, humans, mostly, right? And these are some of the points. Yes, definitely. I think. Let me take this